You might be surprised how much can you do with just one focal length. If I had to choose just one lens to shoot with, it would definitely be a 35mm lens. I'm not sure which one exactly, but for the last month I had the pleasure to spend my time with the Voigtlander Nocton Classic 35 1.4, a fully manual lens made for Sony full-frame cameras. Manual lenses have a special place in my heart. For some time I've kept the 7 Artisans 35 1.4 full-frame lens for Sony E, of which review you can see on my channel as well. Voigtlander lenses were well known for their character and state-of-the-art build. However, they were mostly familiar to Leica users. But since the mirrorless era came and almost every glass can now be adapted to modern cameras, Voigtlander made its way to a wider audience. Especially that they released the line dedicated to Sony's E-mount. I'm not a fan of adapters, and I highly value the native mount lenses to keep the gear as compact as possible. Voigtlander's Nocton Classic is one of these lenses that fall beautifully into A7's design and remain compact at the same time. I mean, just look at this lens attached to Sony A7 II. Can you imagine a more sexy looking alpha? Now, the Nocton Classic is something that I call a 2-in-1 lens. While fully open, this lens offers a rather soft image, but surprisingly sharp enough in the center with a very soft corners, and pretty much vignetting. This way it's great for portraits and artsy details, as it's full of that Voigtlander's character. But when you close it to, let's say, f4, you get some pretty decent and sharp images with a good contrast. This 35mm lens has become my close friend in the last few weeks. It's definitely not a very proper lens, but it has something unique in its rendering that just inspires you to do photography. The word classic is of course no coincidence here. This lens brings analog soul to modern digital world of photography. I hate Sony for its color science, but if you are no stranger to editing software, you can always achieve a lot in post to make the pictures look vintage-like. And if you are into black and white photography, you'll be in love with this lens. Trust me. Nocton Classic falls into a category that I like to call a jewelry lens. You get the pleasure both for looking at it and holding to it. It's all metal and glass. The manual controls are really good. The aperture ring works nice with a subtle click and turns firmly, so there is no danger of accidentally switching the aperture during shooting. The focus ring is buttery smooth, with just the right amount of resistance, and offers very precise focusing, even at f1.4. With little practice, it's easy to learn to quickly focus using just the peaking feature with less magnification switching. And this lens works great for portraits and street photography. I wouldn't use it for professional landscape though, as the corners are too soft. But still it holds pretty well for casual outdoor wide shots too. If you consider buying this lens, remember, it's very improper. Definitely a kind of artistic lens. And I love it. The rendering of this lens is something different. You can get away with many boring backgrounds using Nocton Classic, as it has that nervous bokeh, a signature of this glass. Not everyone likes it, but it certainly is not the one that goes unnoticed. It's definitely a lens for conscious photographers that like a certain style of photography. A very personal photography, I'd say. The lens can focus down to 0.3 meter, which is not something amazing, but it's enough even for close-up shots. It tends to show some distortion and a visible vignetting, but since there's a Lightroom profile available for a long time, you can fix it with one click if you need that, proper image. It's also fun to use for video, and the crazy bokeh can spice up the shot and make it a lot more interesting. You can also do nice focus pulls because of the fully mechanical focusing mechanism. Will I keep this lens? Probably. It gives me a lot of joy. It gives me that character that I expect from lenses I use. I hate the clinical image and repeatable bokeh that you can find on many portfolios. I like to focus manually and keep my images personal. I like lenses that can produce dreamy images and the sharper and contrasty ones as well. I like to keep my gear compact. And I love the 35mm focal length. Nokton Classic gives me all of that in one package. Oh, and since it's a fully manual lens, you'll notice one more great feature. Your battery will last a hell lot longer since there's no AF motor to drain it. So it's really nice for people who like to travel with their camera and shoot a lot of pictures. This is my first Voigtlander, and I gotta admit, it hooked me. I wanna be a Voigtlanderist.